Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the BRIN Foundation and BRIN for organizing this wonderful forum. I'm delighted to be here and thank you for the opportunity. Okay, so my topic today would be the college inversion zoning. One of the most comprehensive study ever made on the master planning, tourism master planning on Banda, Naira's cultural heritage tourism area was entitled "A Revival of an Old Dutch City." The study, however, was made before the amendment of 1992 Cultural Heritage Act, and with no derivative regulation in place, resulting to the following problems. First, conceptually, cluster zoning were not delineated through specific site delineation, thus rather relies more on historic narration than archaeological findings. Second, the study provided inventories of 100+ old buildings, but conceptually old buildings are not necessarily cultural heritage. Thus, technically, the difference between the two definitions may cause further management issues. Now, third, technically, the master plan coverage was too large to manage, plus minus 72 hectare study area, 40 hectare design consultancy area, and 13.5 hectare pilot projects, which practically consisted almost a quarter of the island or more than 3/4 of its urban area. Hence, the local government of Central Maluku, through its Office of Public Works, commissioned new research and master plan projects 2022 and 2023 for Banda Naira and its surrounding islands. Here are some of the highlights. First, the new master plans being designed using specific method to comply with the new 2010 Cultural Heritage Act and its derivative regulation in relatively more viable scale, which start from 32 hectare study area. Accompanying to the Act, Article 41 and 49, 249, study area delineation is set within the close proximity of 5 cultural heritage buildings on national level and 4 cultural heritage buildings on provincial level. So as you can see, these are the 5 and 4 cultural heritage buildings. And these are the proposed study area, 32 hectares, that is closely knitted to the 9 cultural heritage. Now, some of them, House of Exiles, 4 of them, and then 2 large forts, Belgica and Nassau, and some of the colonial heritage, from the mini palace to the old church. Now, accompanying to the 2010 Cultural Heritage Act, Article 41 to 49 study area is also identifying further 11 allegedly cultural heritage buildings on northwest sector and 59 allegedly cultural heritage buildings and structures on southeast sector. Thus, in total, the research identifies 79 definitive and allegedly cultural heritage buildings and structures, wherewith few very exceptions, complying to Article 5, can be grouped into the following 3 different stylistic timelines with specific context representation. First, we have the pre-colonial period in the northwest sector, consisting of, among others, old markets, among others, Klenteng and 4 Chinese captain houses. And then the second, we have the early colonial period with defense context, which consists of 2 the large forts, Nassau and Belgica. And third, we have the early colonial period with urban context in southeast sector, which consists of mini palace, Société de Harmonie clubhouse, and many partners' house. Thus, the new cultural heritage tourism master plan is proposing the formation of 3 cultural heritage sites, very specific sites, which includes first Port City site on the northwest sector, and then the 2 fort site on the center sector, and resident Huis, a colonial city site on the southeast sector, which includes Ex-Perkenier's villa compound that will become the focus of this presentation. Now, the 3 sites that made up the 17.8 hectare only core zone delineation for the proposed Banda Naira's cultural heritage area. So as you can see, these are the 3 proposed cultural heritage sites with all of the definite and allegedly cultural heritage inventories. And these are the 17.8 proposed core zone delineation for the establishment of Banda Naira Cultural Heritage Area. Very manageable, very quite small, actually. Now, to understand more about the context of the importance of the sites, we need to go back a little bit to the historical context. Okay, so in 1622, Governor General Jan Peterson Koen led 19 galleons with 1,655 Dutch soldiers plus 286 Japanese missionaries to kill, enslave, and displace 14,000 native Bandanese, approximately 90% of all the island's inhabitants. Now, the genocide soon followed by the establishment of Perk colonial plantation system, which divided Banda Naira, Banda Besar islands into 6, 3, and 15 perks respectively. Slaves were mostly brought in to work on this nutmeg plantation from Java, Sumatra, India, and China. Later on, Banda Naira's residence was established as Perkenier's villa compound, built within the working perimeter of mini palace and Societe Dormani. This is a clubhouse building. This 23 blocks compound is uniquely distinguished through its villa walls that surrounded most, if not all, of its compound. Many of these walls still exist today. Now, concentration of the Ex-Perkenier's villa compound can best found through the mapping of 7 specific corridors, i.e. the A to G corridors, which are all within proposed cultural heritage area delineation. A detailed documentation on the area found how together these allegedly cultural heritage buildings and, most importantly, structures may potentially be the main visual backbone in recreating or rather preserving the ambience of the sites and its timeline-specific stylistic expression. So these are the documentation, detailed documentation for AA corridor, BB corridor, D, D, E, and FF corridor. As you can see, there are a lot more structures rather than buildings or structural work. So the research questions are, technically speaking, the status of cultural heritage areas should be enough to safeguarding the preservation and conservation of Banda Naira's buildings and structures. But these buildings and structures are mostly located on privately owned land in urban living monuments, meaning that people live in settings. Now, these settings in itself may pose challenges such as, first, compensation complexity, where receiving cultural heritage status usually comes with compensation, such as a deduction or even waivery of land and building tax. But does the state, in this case the Regency governmental level, willing to lose income in such kind of urban scale? Second, tourism complexity. Granting certain cultural heritage status to push up tourism industry in its surrounding region is becoming common practice in Indonesia. Now, the practice itself is not against the law, but in some cases it might cause a logical fallacy. And this is especially true in the not yet developed tourism frontiers such as Banda Naira and the surrounding islands. Also, well, first, since 2011, Banda Naira had been enlisted as one of the 88 National Tourism Strategic Area, SPN. But 12 years on, and nothing had changed much. This is exemplified by the lack of availability of daily passenger boat and airplane services from its region, from and to its regional hub, Ambon. Now, second, perhaps it is this lack of infrastructure development that had safeguarded Banda's rich heritage in the first place. Hence, there's no guarantee that once the tourism project finally took off, preservation and conservation will still be appealing to the Bandanese. Now, this is because the tourism brings economic improvement, which in turn fosters changes. So, thus the main research question, there were 2 of them. So, first, is there a technical approach that can be used to manage change in Banda Naira's residents with specific context? And second, an approach that to some degree allow economic improvement to happen while maintaining the very source of that economic improvement. Methodologically, well, theoretically speaking, the historical shift from urban planning to urban design practices during early postmodern era of the so-called non-planning master planning movement might provide theoretical foundation needed. Within this timeline, Colin Rowe, Fred Kotler's Collage City theory was originally forwarded to highlight the existence of cities collage, which mirror the overall city fabric. This theory was one of the first to recognize the differentiation of public and private realm, while overlaying solid planning methodology for all. The analysis is similarly in Naira, the villa compound, not the building, which are visibly distinguished through its high perimeter walls, are also acting as the collage that made up residence suites as a whole, where the walls become the barriers between public and private property. Now, declaring residence suites as cultural heritage site, however, requires these perimeter walls to be part of the public realm, but not necessarily anything in or rather behind it. Because fundamentally, it is the view of on the road around the compounds that needed to be preserved. So rather than preserving the whole site, it will be much more viable to focus on the preservation of the road, plus the remaining perimeter walls and selected buildings and or building facades. Theoretically speaking, this proposed management strategy urged to invent resident with collage mapping, making its perimeter walls as public property, but leaving the land parcel inside as private property. Further adjustment on the common special laws such as building borderline garis sempadan, GSP, building base coefficient, KDP, and buildings floor coefficient or KLP can be utilized so that, for example, whatever style buildings built inside the compound perimeter will not be visible from the road. Hence, it will not interfere with the preservation of the area's past visual ambience. That's all for me now. Thank you for your attention and looking forward to a fruitful discussion. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Shalom. Om Santi Santi. Namo Buddhaya. Salam kebajikan.